It's Debbie Levitt from deltacx.com, and I just got off a call with Dr. Seth Finkel. We're planning our next podcast adventure, which by now will have to be for early November. So, welcome to Office Hours Ask Me Anything. I am still setting up all of my screens, but this is the adventure where you get to ask me anything. I'm here for an hour, and I'm setting up all my screens. I'll be monitoring the LinkedIn chat, the YouTube chat, and also now the Twitter hashtag DeltaCX, all is one word. So you can send in your questions any of those ways. You can also send in questions this way. I've got an anonymous URL where if you want to ask a question and you don't want me reading your name out, you can send in your questions anonymously. Let's see if I have any questions coming in. See, there's a bunch of junk in my inbox, but let's see. Okay, no questions yet. We did get one along the way while, because this URL is good, by the way, all week long. If you think of a question, you can always send that in, and I will get it, and I will add it to the list of questions for me to answer first. And I think I did get one during the week, so as soon as I've got all my screens in place, I will answer that question first. But first of all, everybody, tell me how you're doing. It is September 22 in the year 2020. This is Office Hours Ask Me Anything. And let's see, I am now hooking up the YouTube chat to my display. So hopefully that will come to life very soon. Let's see. And what else? I am live. Good for me. And let's also open up my notes so I can see what our question was. The question was, could you give us an example of how you would approach the discovery process? Probably that piece that happens within gathering requirements and doing research. Okay, super question. And of course, it's hard for me to just give one answer and say, I always do this. You know, to me, part of being a strategist is shifting for what's happening at that project, at that company, on that team, with that budget, with that time frame. So I can't say this is what I always do. But if I am given lots of time and lots of money and lots of leeway on a project, typically I'll start with if there are any already written requirements or documentation or suggestions, I'll look at that. If there's any pre-existing research, I'll want to see that. Sometimes I'm new to the company or the project and they've already done some research. I'd like to see that. Sometimes I want to talk, depending upon the nature of the project, sometimes I want to talk to internal people. I schedule internal interviews. I might talk to stakeholders, not from the perspective of what's going on with the customer, but what's going on with them and what do they think they need to accomplish. I might talk to customer support representatives to get kind of a bird's eye view of what seems to be going on for customers, since again, it is secondary research, but very often they've got their finger on the pulse of what's happening for people, and they tend to see those patterns across users, and they're familiar with some edge cases. So I can sometimes get a little bit of that beautiful balloon 10,000-foot view from some customer support people, or sometimes I'm given access to customer support tickets. I remember one company let me sit in on calls for a day, so I was listening to some calls. You know, it's all different. But basically, I'm slowly working my way to the user. Depending upon what the project is, sometimes before or after the research, I might do some competitive analysis. Remember, competitive analysis, what most people get wrong there is they assume that competitors must be doing something right, when in many cases, competitors are getting it very wrong. So I look at competitors, but not necessarily from the perspective of like, I bet they're getting it right. Let's reverse engineer this. But to be familiar with competitors, sometimes the domain I might not be as familiar with, especially when I'm brought in as a freelancer or an agency. So more domain familiarity, competitor familiarity. Hey, Harshit. Hey, Eshita. I will get to what you guys are saying. I'm not supposed to say guys. I'll get to what everyone is saying once I finish this first question. Competitive analysis. Sometimes I have to do an analysis and audit of what this company already has. I'm working on a project for X. What the heck is X? I'm going to have to use it and try it, and maybe do a little quick user testing or something to get familiar with some of the aspects of it. And then if I can do, if I'm being brought on for research, then hooray. Where possible, I would love to do observational studies. Right now I'm doing a remote observational study of 70 people. I'm sharing that 70 with a partner, but we're looking at a lot of people and they're all doing the same thing. So we're going to be experts on that thing, I hope. I prefer to observe people if I can, and if not, I'm happy to talk to people. I'm usually good at getting some good information out of people. And so I'm not too sure from this anonymous question how deeply you want me to go into that process, but those are some of the things that I would be doing in discovery, depending upon the project, depending upon the timing and the budget. You know, not everything's going to be perfect or have the money for things, but these are some of the things that I like to do. And then, of course, with research comes all of the notes and analysis and finding the patterns and themes and determining the insights and coming up with actionable suggestions and all of that. So lots and lots of stuff in there. So hopefully I've answered. If I forgot something, I may have forgotten something. I was just talking to Dr. Seth Finkel about our upcoming super secret podcast we're planning. So I've got kind of my mind over there. But I hope that helps. If you're watching or listening, give me a follow-up question. Or if you have a follow-up question to that and you didn't ask the original question, that's okay too. Um, so Harshit says, "Hey Debbie, missed a few sessions. I forgive you. My question is, I want to better myself as a user researcher and be more aware. How should I start? A personal project." It really depends. It depends. Now again, thing one, I always suggest, and you know this, Harshit, a mentor or a coach, because you might say, "Hey, I'm ready to do a personal project," but a mentor or coach looking at you might say, "Yes, you are," or, "Ooh, before you do that, you might want to learn more about this." So number one, no matter what you do next, whether you do a personal project or you try to pursue more learning, I cannot recommend enough getting some sort of mentor or coach who will get to know you personally and is not just a cheerleader. It's not just going to go, "Hooray, Harshit, you're doing things." Cheerleaders are lovely, but I feel strongly about having people who are going to look at what you're doing critically and be able to say, "Hey, fix this, improve this," or "Hey, this was good." So, should you jump into a personal project is hard for me to say because I don't know how your research is. I don't know where you have room for improvement. I don't know what you've learned so far. And so I don't just want to give you kind of general blanket advice and just say, "Oh, yeah, go with a personal project." Sometimes that's the right move, and sometimes I would say it's not the right move. So talk to someone who can get to know you, see where your strengths and weaknesses are, and see if the personal project is the right place for you. And then again, the personal project sounds great, but who's going to watch what you're doing at every step and make sure you planned your research well, recruited correctly, wrote great questions, asked them the right way, interpreted things well, found good insights, came up with actionable suggestions. So there's so many pieces to certainly CX and UX and research as well that I wouldn't want to see you guessing at it, because I think that guessing at stuff does not help us level up. There's only so much that we can guess at piano and do piano really well. So eventually we usually end up getting a coach. Thank you for that. Let me know if you have a follow-up question. Now we're going to look at Eshita's question, and I'm also going to check my email to see if anybody has asked an anonymous question yet, but I am not seeing an anonymous question. Let's see. Always hilarious when I see a job description with OmniGraffle in it. Anybody still using OmniGraffle and who wants to admit it? All right. Heshita, good to see you again. I think it's been a while. So your question is, can I get an opportunity to work with you, meaning me, in any research project I would like to volunteer for my learning? Eshita, that's beautiful. And thank you for saying that. I have been keeping this a secret, and it's still a secret. I am working on something right now that is an experiment. I'm experimenting with working with some apprentices on a project, and I want to see how it goes to have apprentices. How much do I need to help them? Where are they in their learning process? What can I do for them? What can they do with me? And this is not something that is open right now for application. I do not have any slots open. You cannot apply to it. So that's part of why it's been secret. I didn't want to get 10,000 applications for an apprenticeship. These are currently closed. No, there is no waiting list. I just don't even want people to apply. So if there is, when I am talking publicly about this project, it will probably be early next year. At that point, I hope that I'll be able to open it up to some sort of application process and have additional people apprenticing. But right now, since it's me and one other person being the mentor to everybody, and right now I think we have a team of 8, it's been a lot of time. It's been beautiful, and I think the experiment's going well, but it's been a lot of time. So I don't have the ability to take on anybody else right now, and we really don't have any other work that I would be able to give to someone right now. So thank you, Eshita, for that beautiful question. And yes, always ask people questions like this because you never know when they'll say, yeah, you know what, I do need somebody. So always good to ask the questions. Don't be afraid. But unfortunately, I don't have anything cooking right now. So Margaret asks, are wireframing skills a must for a career as a UX designer? I love that question. That's super. So UX is like engineering. In engineering, there are so many different jobs and domains inside of engineering. You know, people can say, I'm an engineer, but then we really don't know what they do. Are they a developer? Are they a QA tester? Are they a software architect? Are they DevOps? Are they a million different things? And UX has really the same kind of landscape. Now, we have something that we typically call UX designer. And very often, what we mean by UX designer, and this isn't going to be every job. We have a problem with job titles. Go search the live stream podcast playlist over on the YouTube channel, and you will see. We did UX titles. It was like episode 40 or 50 something. Maybe older, maybe 40 something. Scroll back, scroll back. Basically, when most people, not all, say UX designer, they usually expect you to be in information architecture and interaction design. Information architecture has to do with taxonomies, hierarchies, organization, structures. I think I said hierarchies. And then, of course, information architecture is usually your wireframing and your prototyping, creating the blueprints. Now, that doesn't mean you're doing the visual design. Sometimes the same person does the visual design and sometimes someone else does it. And sometimes there's a design system. So you're just using predefined components. But in many cases, a UX designer would probably be a heavy wireframing or prototyping job. So if crazy hair day. If, Margaret, you are feeling like you like the idea of UX design, but you don't love wireframing, tell me more about what you like doing. Maybe we'll find a good job title or description that fits you better, because I would say that in many cases, jobs looking for a UX designer are looking for wireframes. They might also be looking for visual design. They might not. They might also be looking for research. They might not. It's one of those jobs where I can't tell from the title what it's going to have, but I would say very often wireframes are at the core of it. Whereas if you said, I want to be a UX researcher, do I have to wireframe? I might say, good to know, but it might not be the core of your job. Harshit says, thank you, Debbie, for your advice. I do not feel confident right now with my research. So being utterly honest, I think there's a lot of scope of improvement. Well, great. So again, even a better reason for you to get a mentor or coach, somebody who can get to know you and see where some of those strengths and weaknesses are and help push you in some better directions. And then Harshit has another question and say anything in the nope, nobody has sent. Remember, this is office hours. Ask me anything. You can send a question in at deltacx.link/AMA. That's if you want to send it anonymously. I'm also checking the YouTube chat and the LinkedIn chat, and now also Twitter with the hashtag DeltaCX. So lots of ways to get me your question. Harshit's second question. Oh, Eshita says thank you. Thank you, Eshita. Harshit says, how should we recruit interviewees for qualitative analysis? What methods would you choose for interviewees? So by recruit, I think you mean, but you tell me, normally we send out a screener survey. Now, that's not the only way, but I would say it's pretty common. It's something I've done recently where you send out a screener survey to find different people who will answer that survey and tell from their answers, are they the people you're looking to talk to or not? Like I've been sending out a screener survey for my research apprentices, and we are looking for UX researchers who are willing to talk about their process related to a certain aspect of UX research. Some people filled out that survey, and when I asked, would you be willing to have an hour call with a research apprentice, they picked no. Okay, thanks for filling out the survey, but I don't need you. So that would be one way that I can decide who's going to be a part of that study and who's not, usually a screener survey. So let's see, how should we recruit the interviewees? I would usually start with a screener survey if I want to make sure that I have strangers. Sometimes because I'm usually coming in as an agency or a freelancer or a contractor, sometimes I make my client do it. And I just say, you find me 12 people like this, or find me 20 people like this, and I'll talk to 12 of them because a bunch of them will cancel and not show up. So, and then there's outside companies as well, where all they do is find you peeps. So we've got lots more questions here. So quickly, Margaret said follow up. Thank you. I love working with people and finding a good solution for them. The focus on people is what I want to do. I thought UX designer would be a good fit. I thought that was a more general role. Yeah, it can be. And again, different companies say different things about what a UX designer does, but wireframing is going to be at the core of it, or prototyping, which I much prefer. I'm an Acture geek. I had an Acture shirt on. What did I do with it? I threw it somewhere. I was wearing that earlier. I forgot. So if you want to create solutions for people, you are probably going to be a UX designer, or if you are also a visual designer, you might see product designer, you might see UX architect. These might be some good job titles for you to look out for, but make sure you are really good at wireframing and prototyping, and that you know the foundations of user-centered design and human-centered design. It's great to study cognitive psychology. It's important to study all these things and not just go with, well, I watched a video and they said if I'm great at sketching, I'll be great at this. Maybe and maybe not. So please be very careful. Let me move on to Yash's question. Thank you for joining us, Yash. What is your opinion about human psychological factors in designing experiences? I am writing a thesis which includes research of behavioral psychology in travel experiences. How do you design for something which isn't linear, like behavior? Great question. And let me also mention that I do not have a degree in psychology, so I may be a little bit outside of the realm of what you're looking for, Yash, but I always do my best to answer every question. Just giving you guys the truth that sometimes you ask questions that are not necessarily my strengths, but hopefully I'll say something helpful. Thank you, Margaret. I'm glad you found that helpful. Oh, good. Avraham is here. Good to see you. Oz is here. Wow. Oh, and Maggie's here. Oh my God. It's like the reunion. I'm going to cry. This is great. Okay, so Yash, here's what I think about that. When we think about designing for behaviors, and especially behaviors that might be hypothetically nonlinear, the main thing is many paths and experiences in CX and UX are nonlinear. That's very often why in information architecture we're creating a user flow or a process flow. We're creating a flow chart that says people are going to do this, and then some are going to do this, and some are going to do this, and some are going to do this. And we try to flow chart that and say, what are people doing, and where are they going to end up, and do they all have to get back to the same place, or is it okay that they went over there? So thing one We have those process flows and user flows, whatever people might call them, to help us map out what the majority of customers and even some edge cases are likely to do or definitely doing. Because again, if we've done good qualitative research, we know what they're doing. And now these user flows are going to be optimized versions of these other flows. So remember that um, users and customers tended to think in terms of tasks, in terms of their own workflows. So if you think about travel, there's booking travel. Now, booking travel could be one thing to some people because their task today is, I've got to buy these flights. So their task is not done until they have booked travel. But then again, that's nonlinear. Did they pick seats? Did they not pick seats? Did they check a bag and not check a bag? You could have, I'm just looking at flights today. I'm not going to buy, just want to see what some of the prices and times are. Then their task or workflow is searching for flights. And that's going to have fewer snakes because it's just this smaller piece. So when we are designing for these things, we must stay focused on the task, the way the customer sees the task, not the way our company sees it or our boss, the way the customer or user sees the task and the many possible outcomes of that task, all of the branches and the nonlinear behavior that you're talking about. So, Yash, tell me if I'm going in the right direction with the answer. I hope I am, but let me know if you have a follow-up question to that or if I've given you enough direction on that. So let's talk about Ralitza is here. She wants to talk about ethics. Let me copy and paste this in because she's asked this and people are giving her lots of thumbs up over on the YouTube side, which I know the LinkedIn side cannot see. Ralitza says, I'd like to talk about ethics a bit. Which trendy practices have you observed and would like to flag as problematic ethics-wise? And Oz says, good question. And people are curious about this. So again, this is my opinion. Opinions are going to be different. I feel strongly about this one, but so obviously, one of the things I've seen the most that is to me never ethical is, and I know Oz is going to explode when I say this, but data manipulation. I've worked at places where people took something that looked like data and twisted it to say, oh, you know, customers really want this, or oh, we think people really want this, or oh, yeah, people are going to pay for this, or oh, yeah, we did this project and it worked out well. Look at these numbers we have, and it turns out the numbers were faked. When I wrote my Delta CX book last year, I did 15 interviews, which are all in the book, and one of them was a data scientist. And I said to her, what is the worst way we can work with a data scientist? And she said, by asking me to find the data that backs up your opinion. That's the worst thing you can do. So I would say the number one unethical thing, now, of course, there's much greater ethics breaches than data manipulation, but I'm choosing that one first because I think it is extremely common. And Oz might back this up because he is Mr. Data. Quickly, Yash says, it was an interesting perspective. I wasn't expecting an answer as a psychologist, but since I'm a designer as well, a design perspective helps. Thank you. Yeah, I'm not a psychologist either. I have a degree in music. So there. Enjoy me singing about Gestalt principles. So I think data manipulation is quite common and we need to get it under control because it is a form of lying and it is unethical. And whether or not it's trendy, I do see it happening at times on teams and at companies. Other things, when I really, so again, because you asked trendy, it's not like I'm just going to say, oh, Facebook manipulates elections. You know, that's not trendy. That's, you know, unfortunately been happening since elections were invented. When I think about trendy practices that I think are problematic and unethical, I think I would have to go with, and hands up, who knows what I'm about to say? Who knows what I'm about to say? I need this for that. I'm going to say design thinking. And I'm going to say design thinking, design sprints, lean UX, and a lot of things that are called design or co-design workshops. Now you might say, oh, come on, Deb, people love those. They can't be unethical. And I say, hear me out. First of all, you can go into the live stream podcast playlist and you can find episode 50 about design thinking has jumped the shark. And it was 40 something was lean UX is neither lean nor UX. And something else around that time was collaboration versus design by committee versus decentralization. You can find these all have their own playlists as well. They're called models and aspirologies, I think. I think these are unethical, and I think they're unethical because very often, not always, they focus on guessing about customers. And I think that can end up unethical. That doesn't mean it's always 100% unethical, but I think that that can end up unethical because what ends up happening is it's what we call tail wagging the dog. So someone says, "Ooh, let's get everyone together for a workshop where everyone's going to glue macaroni to a plate," and oh, and Oz is adding to that. So real quickly, Oz says. Uh, Data manipulation, and also something that isn't unethical, but people who misinterpret the data. They reach a conclusion when the data is actually quite murky. Yes, so that would be bad, but not the things I saw I felt were unethical because they were data messed with on purpose to get money, to spend money, whatever it was. So I don't like these co-designing workshops, design sprints, design thinking, because they're not a good UX process. There are a lot of people guessing at UX. They're guessing at what customers want. They're guessing at who customers are. And then they're sketching something out. They're picking the one they like the best. No users were involved. And then they're doing some sort of flawed testing. And to me, that is so many flaws on top of so many flaws. It's no whether it's unethical or not, it's highly risky for our project and for our company. So at the very least, these things are risky and very often huge wastes of money. But on the worst end of the possibility spectrum, because I always look at all the possible outcomes, there could be something unethical that's cooking in there. I don't know if Facebook is running design sprints to figure out how to make you feel more addicted to the news feed. I don't know if that exists. If that exists, I'm going to put that in the unethical box. That's my opinion. We always think that morals and ethics are concrete, but unfortunately they're more fluid, and we don't always all agree with each other. Otherwise, there wouldn't be racism. How was that, Ralitza? Any follow-up question to that? That gave you a couple of things. So Avraham is here. Good to see you. And let me write down your question. Don't forget, you all can ask questions through YouTube, through the anonymous link, through now. Oh, we've got our first. Anonymous question. It's really close to Avraham's question. So let's answer these maybe together. So the question that Abraham asked in the YouTube universe was, and I think I can put it up on the screen because he's got a nice smiley picture, and it says, what do you recommend for being an expert in making wireframes and prototypes? Well, hold on there, new friend. Don't rush to being an expert. You're allowed to be a newbie first, and then mid-level, and then senior, and then expert. So there's that. And then there was also another question that came in anonymously that said, how do I start learning about interaction design? What processes are involved and artifacts created? I think these questions are cousins of each other, since wireframes and prototypes are usually the documentation we're coming out with in our interaction design efforts. So let's put all these together. And Ralitza has a follow-up question, so we'll take a look at that after. But we have questions from other people. We have Hazem asked a question, so we'll get to Hazem first. Okay, so wireframes, prototypes, interaction design. How do you learn about that? I don't have a great answer for that right now because I'm not in love with any particular course or source that is out there right now. I've heard some good things about the IDF courses, but I have not taken them myself. I've heard some good things about Susan Weinshank's classes, but I have not taken them myself. So if you want to give those a try, you can tell me how they were, and I'll know whether or not to recommend them. But I don't have a good source on that right now. And that's unfortunate because prototyping is one of my favorite things to do. It's hard to decide what I love more at this point, researching or prototyping. Love them, but so let's look at this a little bit more generally. So first of all, you can't go wrong studying cognitive psychology. As I was just saying to Margaret, cognitive psychology is at the core of a lot of CX and UX work. So anything you can learn related to the way people think, the way they make choices, the way they perceive or parse information, these are all valuable, and I really do use these things in my work. Sometimes people go, oh, cognitive psychology, when am I going to use that? Every minute. Every minute in your UX job if you're doing UX right. And of course, when I look at portfolios and I see no sign of this stuff, I know that you haven't learned all those things yet. So, thing one, you can't go wrong learning more about cognitive psychology and how people think and behave. And there are some possible books out there. Google for Darren Hood's list of UX books. I don't remember. I think he's got some on there. Um, so how do you become an expert in making wireframes and prototypes? Same way you get to Carnegie Hall, Avraham, practice. So how do you start learning? Again, I don't know, but one thing that's really important about wireframes and prototypes is I feel strongly that it's not good when they're done in a vacuum. Very often people who are interested in UX say, I want to create solutions. I like wireframing. I like this prototyping. I want to make solutions. And they end up just thinking, you see a lot of stuff on Behance and on LinkedIn and in portfolios that say like, I didn't like the way LinkedIn looked, so I made a new whatever. Here's my UX work. And I go, not so fast. That's actually not UX work. Because if we are not being informed by good qualitative research, if we're not being informed by what we know about customers because of what we've learned from them, or from what a proper researcher learned. So you don't have to have done the research, but someone has to have done the research. You've got to be informed by good qualitative research. Without that, we're guessing. That might not be unethical, but that's not a good idea, and that's not a best practice. We definitely shouldn't be guessing. And there's even an article on that in nngroup.com. The Nielsen Norman Group, I think, has an article that says guessing is like choice Z. Choice A is for us to really know, to do the right research to know, not to be making up stories, not to be assuming, not to be guessing, not to be stabbing at stuff. So I think the best way to go with interaction design is to remember that it is not in a vacuum, that you are doing it based on what came before it in the user-centered design process. So what's before it? Information architecture. What's before that? Content strategy. What's before that? Research, including research, competitive analysis, interviews, secondary research. So when I am doing my best prototyping is done when I've got that other stuff, when I've done the information architecture, when I've got good research from somebody or I did good research. My interaction design is going to be pretty good just because I've leveled up a little bit over the years, which goes with this graphic. I've leveled up over the years. Yeah, I started with these characters. So I'm still going to do an okay job because I have extensive experience, but it's not going to be as good when I'm left to guess. And I've had jobs where it was like, hey, Deb, we need this thing. Give it to us in 2 days. Just guess. And I can do that, and so can you. But so can the marketing person. The marketing person could guess at wireframes in 2 days. The product manager could guess at wireframes in 2 days. This is not when the best UX work is done. And I tend to not even call this UX work. To me, it just doesn't qualify. So I think we've got to go a lot deeper. Thanks, everybody. Please ask your follow-up questions in the chat room or to the anonymous link. And now I'm going to look at Hazem's question. Thank you for your patience over there in LinkedIn. Excuse me. We have a thunderstorm rolling in? Maybe. Okay. If I suddenly go off there, everybody, I still love everybody, but we have a thunderstorm rolling in. So I hope we don't lose power. Sometimes we do. So let's talk about Hazem, and then we'll get to Ralitsa's follow-up question unless something else comes in anonymous land. Yes to this. Okay, very yes to this. I just got a calendar invitation that fills my heart with glee. Okay, so it fills me with so much glee I can't even focus on the next question. Okay. Hello, I'm Hazem K.H. Mahdi. I'm a creative UX UI designer. I wanted to ask you about how I could stand out in this great field, and can I go ahead in such field without completing my university study, which is too tough and away from this field? Also a question I love. Welcome, Hazem. I hope I'm pronouncing your name okay. Let me know if I'm not. Everybody give me phonetics and give me your pronouns. I hear I've been doing. Remember Kip, friend of the show Kip? I found out Kip was a woman and I've been saying he all this time. I'm so embarrassed. So give me your pronouns where you can. I want to say the right things for everybody. And if you think I know your pronouns, I might not. Tell me again. So, Hazem, I don't believe that people have to have university degrees in CX or UX or HCI. I think that many jobs do respect a degree more than they respect not degree. So I'm going to be doing a talk next week about what is the value of a UX certificate or UX education. And I'm going to do it again a few weeks later here as a live podcast. But to give you a little bit of a clue, I'm basically going to say that there's two ways to judge education. One is its value to you. No matter what certificate you did or didn't get, or what degree you did or didn't get, did you learn something? Did you level up? Did you improve your skill or proficiency? Right? Everybody knows my model of proficiency from episode 56, phases of proficiency. So, question one is, were you able to level up because you learned something good from someone or someplace good? The second way that we can judge education is it impressive to somebody else? Now, secretly behind the scenes, I am doing an MBA right now. And I'm not doing that because any particular job needs it. I'm doing it because I'm hoping it will lend some credibility to some of the strategy work that I do. I've been a strategist since I was born. It is just in my blood. But I think sometimes when people have seen Debbie Levitt, Bachelor's in Music, it doesn't always lend a certain amount of credibility that they expect to see. Now, you might say, Deb, we show up every week. You sound like you know your shit. And I go, well, thank you. That's very sweet of you. Please keep showing up. And of course, won't you please subscribe if you're on YouTube? And won't you please empathize with the like button and tell YouTube this is a good video to share? And of course, join our Slack workspace. But I thought it might help if I had the MBA for some of these more strategic opportunities, more higher level things where people are expecting to see either a graduate degree or something a little bit more focused on business principles and strategy. That doesn't mean I'm going to take anything away from my CX UX work, and it doesn't mean I'm going to weigh the business more than I weigh the customer. It just means I think that might help me in some places because it lends credibility. So, Hazem, I would say a degree certainly can give employers or other people a sense of credibility. If you're finding it tough or boring or annoying or expensive, I feel you. I think I quit 3 masters in UX along the way because I hated the programs, and that's recently. So, I feel you. You don't have to have a degree to work in UX. If you can show some experience and some skill, most jobs will say, all right, you didn't have the education, but your work's really solid. You know your stuff, you know your foundational principles, you're using them correctly. So If you are new, I would say keep finding ways to learn and level up. And I'm going to say episode 59, learn about how you can find a great mentor or coach who can take a look at what you're doing and see where your strengths and weaknesses are and help you improve those weaknesses so that you can be more ready for that next job, whatever it might be. I hope that helps, Hazem. Thank you for the question. Discover the latest updates to Google Analytics. I'm checking my email to see if anybody's asking anonymous questions, but we're getting a lot more public questions today. Also, let me remind everybody really quickly that if you follow deltacx.link, okay, I see one coming in now, deltacx.link/DEC, like December 2020, you're going to learn about a live Acture course I'm going to be giving online in early December for 2 full days. That's right, you have to listen to me for 2 full days. I'm going to be coughing and drinking water and spraying chloroseptic for talking for 2 days straight. But you are going to learn Acture core skills. I'm going to take you from a scared newbie to a confident intermediate. You're also going to get my video course in that package at no extra charge. And I normally charge $899 for it, but right now it is $60, 60 American dollars. I'm hoping that will be affordable to most people. You will have to block 2 days out of your calendar, but then you will freaking know Acture, at least at a solid intermediate level. So I hope you will come join me for that. What button do I have to press? 1. Okay. I've got a whole panel of buttons you people haven't even seen. So I see the question coming in anonymously. So anonymous person, know that I see you. And another one just came in. I haven't seen that one yet. Let's see what else is in there. Quick follow-up for Ralitza, and then we'll do anonymous question, and then we'll do Abraham's follow-up question. So let's do Ralitza, Abraham, and then our anonymous questions coming in through my email. Ralitza's follow-up question was, can you share non-trendy examples? As a beginner, I want to hear more about the topic of unethical things. So the topic of unethical things is so long, it should really be its own podcast. So let me just give you a short list so we can make sure we get to everybody's questions, because we only have about 15 minutes left, and I do have a phone call after this today, so I can't stay too long. But to me, some of the unethical things that I tend to see that fit into the UX or CX world are really, I would really say go Google controversy and then the word Facebook. I think that would be good. Google controversy and the word Zoom. I would say look up some of the famous controversies of different companies and take a look at what did they do that was controversial? Which of those things might have been unethical? We know, for example, that Facebook has given our data away to companies we wouldn't have wanted to, but hey, they said you agreed to it in the terms and conditions, so it must be okay. Is that ethical? That's legal, but is it ethical? We've got lots of questions here, but to me, like if you really want to see like unethical things happening in the tech industry, I would say Google, Facebook. I remember Facebook's lawyer testified before American Congress and said something like, Facebook users shouldn't even have an expectation of privacy, something along those lines. I'm not quoting him. That didn't feel good. So I think ethics are going to be related to privacy. They're going to be related to security. They're going to be related to manipulation of emotions and mental health, which Facebook has been very guilty of. Of course, Facebook is manipulating elections. That's really bad. There are people who are happy with that, and those are the people who shouldn't be allowed to manipulate elections. So we're seeing things happening now in the world on a scale that is scary, and some of that comes from tech. Facebook wanted this has gone quiet, but last year they wanted to create an international identification card and their own currency. I can't imagine how that's going to be ethical. So these are the things that I am looking out for. I think these are unethical, and I also do worry that anybody working for Facebook in this time when so much unethical things are known about them, like how they fine-tune the news feed to cause depression, I think that people later on might have some trouble getting jobs because if I see someone with Facebook on their resume, I say, well, why were they there? Were they there because they agree with what the company did? Do I assume that they lack ethics? You run the risk of guilt by association, or that you feel that way. So I'm just going to stop there. That's a lot of soapboxy stuff. I know some people will disagree. They'll think Facebook is great. Facebook is a great job. Facebook is whatever. You are welcome to believe that. There were people who thought Mussolini was great. So, there's always going to be someone who thinks something is great, no matter what other people think. So if we have different opinions, you're welcome to block me on LinkedIn. Avraham says, I wanted to know if it makes a difference if you learn Figma or Adobe XD, etc. How much will it impact getting a job? Great. I get to tell you one of my other favorite things. If you are thinking about UX jobs, one exercise that I love to give people that I broadcast to or coach, we've got this one. We can put it on the screen, is go reverse engineer jobs. Look up jobs that sound great to you, like, oh, that job sounds great. I'd love to do that job. Write down what tools they want, what skills they expect, how much experience they expect. Chloroseptic, y'all. Now, if you can make that into a matrix or a spreadsheet or a tally, you can eventually see, the jobs that I feel excited about, they're all looking for this. They're all looking for this. And you'll be able to answer that yourself because I can't say, oh my God, everybody has to know Figma, because a few years ago, Figma didn't exist and it was everybody has to know Sketch. So I would say that it's most common in UX jobs to see Sketch, Figma, and Adobe XD, but you will also see Acture. So typically I'm telling people, learn these things even a little. Learn Acture a lot, but because it's special. But I think if you reverse engineer job listings, you'll quickly get an idea of the jobs that interest you, what they're looking for. That's why you don't need to learn OmniGraffle because nobody wants it anymore. Ta-da! Okay, so let's see some of the questions that have been coming in anonymously. And while I do that, I'm just going to put up this on the screen and remind everybody to please subscribe on YouTube and press that like button so that we're full of likingness. All right. Beep. Okay, next question came in anonymously, so I have to read it to you. I'm an aspiring UI UX designer working on my second project to put on my portfolio. With regards to personal projects, how do you recommend doing research? I usually read research papers and articles related to the topic and try to do a few surveys and interviews with friends and family if they're in the target user group. Thank you. Okay, so I think that if you are looking to make a UX portfolio that just shows a little bit of research, then speaking to 4 people could be okay. UX almost never runs surveys. I know a lot of boot camps and books and videos tell you to run a survey. In reality, we rarely run surveys. I run them see episode 51 about surveys. I'll run them for screeners for research, but in general, I don't run a lot of surveys. They're just so flawed. So if you really just want to show that you're doing kind of minimal research to inform some interaction design that you want to do, you can probably get away with that. You can get away with some secondary research about the domain, and then you can do some interviews. The survey's not important. You're almost never going to learn enough from a survey to do a good design from. You have to do the interviews or the observations. So if the focus of your work is going to be, look at this great interaction design I did, then I would probably be okay with a little bit of quality research or from you getting research from another source. But make sure in the portfolio storytelling that you're clear about that, because sometimes when I see these portfolios, I just see research badly done, or I see research skipped or skimped on. And you need to make sure that I know that you're just focusing on IA and interaction design. If you want to show me you can do research, you're going to have to do better than what you've written me. So this is our tough love moment, and I don't have a graphic for tough love. I have real love. I don't have tough love, but here's our tough love moment. If you want to show me you can do great UX research, then you can Google on the topic, but I'm usually not impressed by that. That's domain research. We still don't know that much about customers, or you know what other people guessed about customers. I'm not impressed by that. So you can get your domain knowledge, but that doesn't really count as user research. Surveys, don't do them. Can I just say that? Don't do them. That is not user research. That might be a screening tool to determine who you interview, but it's not user research. And if you show me and tell me it is, I probably don't want to interview you. Whoa. Interviews with friends and family, also not my favorite, right, Avraham? So, because he and I talked about this already. And I talk about this with a bunch of you, so I'm not just pointing at him. I'm pointing at all of you because he's doing a great job. So please make sure if you want to show me that you can do good research, you've got to do it with strangers. It's easy to say, I'm going to sit down with my mom, my sister, my kids, my granny, and I'm going to ask them some questions. Super comfort space. I want to see what happens when you talk to a total stranger. So you've got to find people you don't know, and you've got to do some research with them. And right, Ralitza, I'm gonna name names today. We're in school today. I'm naming names. It's really important to practice that research on strangers. You'll get some things right and you'll get some things wrong, but I want to see you talking to at least, I would like to see at least 8 people. If you only talk to 2, 3, 4, you're not really going to get enough to do good analysis of that research, and then you're probably definitely guessing at your architecture and interaction design. So I would say if you really want to have a portfolio project that impresses me, it's got to be like that. And if you really want to catch my eye, you'll stop saying UI, UX. Because that's not a thing. When I see UI UX, the impression I get is you are a graphic designer who likes to make wireframes. If that's not the impression you want me to get, you can change it. You can leave it if you like, but I would say that among some of the people I know, when we see people write UI first, we just assume that that's what's more in your heart, that you are a visual designer, the UX is secondary, and to us, it's not. And Ralitza says, always try to get someone that you don't know or doesn't know you. Get feedback from them. Yes. So, so don't just interview friends and family. Too easy. Doesn't look like a real job. Remember, a portfolio project is supposed to look like what you might do working at that job. Working at that job, you're not going to half-ass everything, and you're not going to call up your mom and send her a survey. So start showing people you know how to do the right things the right ways. I hope that helps. We only have a few minutes left. If you have any last questions, send them in now because I really can't stay too late this time. So one question we got anonymously is, how should I evaluate the UX maturity of an organization if it's not so popular? This question went well until if it's not so popular. Is the organization not popular? Is UX not popular? If UX is not popular, you might have just evaluated its maturity. Nielsen Norman Group has a good model for levels of UX maturity. I'm going to roll over here and get my own book for a second because I have my own model. Give me a second. I don't want everything to drop off my desk. Okay, got it. Blah. Rolling back. Rolling. Hi, I wrote a book. It's called Delta CX. Looks like this. You too can have one. They're on Amazon. Also available as Kindle Unlimited. Sometimes I really need to open the Kindle version and search, but let's see if I can find this while I'm talking to you. So Nielsen Norman Group has a model of maturity, and they have stages of maturity, and it's not a bad model, but I thought I could improve on it. So I went a little bit further. Where is it? It's somewhere in part 1. Who knows where I put something in my own book? As I look for it, let me just say, usually I open it up in Word and I just search, but I don't have Word open. I was not prepared. My model of UX maturity has 2 dimensions. So one has to do with how much is UX? Oh, I want to find this. I don't want to say the wrong thing. Let's see, here's why design sprints are terrible. Here's, by the way, everybody, my Kindle book is on sale this week. I put it on sale this week through Saturday in honor of Rebecca Barr's birthday. And you can get it for 99 cents if you are using Kindle USA. Oh my gosh, peeps, I can't find this in my own book. Does anybody know where this? I found it. Page 20. I just went through the whole book to find it on page 20. Okay, so to me, I've got two dimensions. The stage, which is I did a derivative of what Nielsen Norman Group did, and then my second dimension is autonomy. So I've got stage 1, hostility. We've all been there. Stage 2, non-CX workers are doing CX tasks. So the product manager is wireframing, the business analyst is talking to customers. Stage 3, your first CX hires are not really strong in CX. The company didn't know how to assess people. They hired a couple of artists to do the UX, and it's not as strong as it could be. Stage 4, first CX hires who are specialists, so that would be great. Stage 5, first CX managers who are specialists, so now you're growing out a team and a hierarchy where UX people answer to CX or UX people answer to CX or UX managers, not answering to engineering or marketing or product. Stage 6, CX has its own C-level executive, chief experience officer. That's the top of the maturity stages. But then I also have what I'm calling autonomy, because I believe another way to measure the maturity of an organization is how much autonomy does UX have. And for this, I gave everybody a grade from F for failing up through A. Aurelisa says, this reminds me of agile maturity models, which is funny because I don't know what those are, so I made this up, and it's great that this sounds like something people know. So autonomy level F, failure, UX and CX don't exist. The company is wholly or mostly focused on business goals. No matter what the company claims to care about customers, UX really doesn't exist. Fail. Autonomy level D, you're just above failing. CX exists but is treated as a pair of hands to wireframe or document someone else's ideas. And I have been there. So that is a super low level of maturity. Autonomy level C, CX is gaining autonomy. It's a transition phase. Some projects are still heavily prescribed where we don't get creativity or freedom or research. Some are allowing more flexibility. Some projects are being influenced by research. Some of it is still guessing. Autonomy level B, CX and UX have the power to estimate their own time, which allows them to do research, design, testing, and other tasks as they wish. And then autonomy level A, CX workers and managers have the power to make all CX and UX decisions. So again, that's why I made it different than stage. We can say, ooh, you're at the top stage, you have a manager and you have all this stuff. That's great. But I've worked at companies that had managers and VPs and high-level people, but UX was still treated as, hey, just go sketch me some screens. Okay, well, that's level D out of F. That's almost failing. So that is still, to me, a low maturity company, even if they've built up a hierarchy and a team and a department. So page 20. That's how I would judge maturity through those two dimensions. I feel like the single dimension isn't enough. Cracking my jaw today. That is it for questions, and we're just about out of time. So let me give you a couple of show notes, and also, of course, remind everybody, won't you please usability test the subscribe button on YouTube. Make sure it works. Don't forget, at 1,000 subscribers, boyfriend reveal. Well, not now, honey. At 1,000 subscribers, boyfriend reveal. So won't you please subscribe? and press like so the YouTube algorithm knows you like this stuff. Also, you can join our Slack community. It's totally free. It's still a little quiet there, but we're growing. Let me tell you what's coming up in the podcast world so you know to mark your calendars and tune in. Taking tomorrow off because I'm speaking at a conference. So, Monday the 28th, we'll be doing service design. Elisa Delgado will be back, and she'll be talking about what is service design and how do you get into it. Tuesday the 29th, office hours, Ask Me Anything. Wednesday the 30th is going to be conversational UX and chatbots. So if those interest you, please drop by and let's talk more about those. Now that drags us straight into October. Can you believe it's almost October? I cannot. Monday, October 5th will not be a podcast. Instead, I'm doing what I call my live lesson, where I will come prepared with some slides, maybe an exercise for people joining in live to try out, and we're going to talk about how to make personas. I find that personas are very confusing to a lot of people. People love to say they're meaningless, but I think when they're done well, they are meaningful. And so I'm going to spend just an hour, so obviously you're not going to learn everything about personas, but I'll be talking a little bit about how I approach making them, and hopefully that'll help you. So that's Monday the 5th. And again, these are all free lessons. You don't have to be a member of something. Tuesday the 6th, office hours, Ask Me Anything. Wednesday the 7th, our rescheduled podcast on finding your life purpose. I really hope you'll all be able to join for that. I am already scheduling mid-October. Monday the 12th, I'm going to do my new slides on what is the value of UX certificates and education. So the talk I'm doing next week, I'm going to do as a podcast here on October 12th. October 13th, office hours, Ask Me Anything. Ooh, Wednesday the 14th. I've been waiting to schedule this for months, but my guest was moving. We are going to learn about machine learning and artificial intelligence. What the hell is it? How can it help us? Is it going to take our jobs? Is it fake? Is it real? Etc. So that kind of, and there's stuff already coming for, let's see, well, then there's the week after that is UX Research Week. So you might want to know about that. October 19th, Michelle Ronson from Curiosity Tank will be back to talk about proper UX research terminology. Tuesday the 20th, office hours, Ask Me Anything. Wednesday the 21st, oh yeah, Joel Barr is going to be back. We love him. This will be his third appearance, and he's going to talk about combating common reasons that companies use to not do research. Yes, fight. What is this? I don't know what that is, but it looks interesting. So let's just stop there. So on that note, thanks to everybody who joined. Always good to see all of you. Bring your questions every week. Ask them publicly or anonymously, whatever you want. We do this for an hour every Tuesday, so mark your calendars. And of course, please subscribe, and YouTube will let you know when I'm live. And, please hit that like button so that YouTube will broadcast me out to the universe. So thanks again, everybody. And on that note, I guess I'll play us out of here and see you all next week.
Thanks for watching. Delta CX is available for consulting and projects related to CX and UX strategy, leadership, training, problem finding, problem solving, and innovation. Learn more at deltacx.com.